Disney's live-action Aladdin has certainly stirred up some controversy over the past few months. Amongst all of the changes they've made from the original animated film, fans were pretty upset when the first images of Will Smith's Genie were released. This new version feels like it wants to pay tribute to the animated film whilst still feeling at home in a live-action film. But let's be real, that's easier said than done. One of the reasons the original Genie stood out so much was how he was animated. Animator Eric Goldberg was inspired by the whimsical style of caricaturist Al Hirschfeld. All of the light, curvy line work turned out to be perfect for the Genie. The character's propensity for impersonating celebrities seemed to pair perfectly with Hirschfeld's caricatures.
All right! Yo, yo, woo, woo, woo.
The Genie quickly became one of the most iconic animated characters of all time. So, what we've learned over the past few months is, when you attempt to recreate such a beloved character, you are bound to encounter a lot of scrutiny. The Disney community has been essentially split down the center, with some excited to see Will Smith's take on the role, and others annoyed by the Genie's design. As polarizing as the argument has become, I am old enough to remember an arguably more intense debate.
Really?
And now, let's take a step back in time to 1993, to an era of Doc Martens and mom jeans, to a time when Beanie Babies and Barney reigned supreme. Of course, the purple dinosaur wasn't the only prehistoric personality to appear in the 90s. Moviegoers were invited to experience the first dinosaur theme park. Hollywood also gave us
We're men in tights. We roam around the forest looking for lights.
and Robin Williams in drag.
Hello!
Director Michael Bay teamed up with the California Milk Processing Board to ignite one of the most successful marketing campaigns of all time.
And now let's make that random call with today's $10,000 question. It's a tough one. Who shot Alexander Hamilton in that famous duel? All right, let's go to the phones and see who's out there.
Hello?
Hello, for $10,000, who shot... Excuse me?
Hold on, let me get some milk. No!
I'm afraid your time is almost up.
No!
I'm sorry, maybe next time.
Got milk?
The Disney Company introduces moviegoers to Jack Skellington, the Sanderson sisters, and a group of Jamaican bobsledders. Roger Rabbit appears in his final animated short, Trail Mix-Up, alongside Baby Herman and Jessica Rabbit.
I must say, you do look like you know what you're doing.
Disney's Aladdin took home 2 Academy Awards for Best Original Score, as well as Best Original Song for A Whole New World. The song Friend Like Me was also nominated for Best Song. Man, I forgot how good the music was in this film. The Super Nintendo was the hottest video game console on the market. Disney had already teamed up with video game developer Capcom to produce a slew of games for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The two companies would continue their collaboration during the 16-bit era, producing games like Goof Troop and The Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse for the SNES. Then in 1993, Capcom would release a game based on Disney's 31st full-length animated film.
Hi! You have been specially selected from among thousands of players to receive some inside information on the hottest video game of the holiday season. Capcom has brought a blockbuster movie to the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Disney's Aladdin.
Aladdin for the Super Nintendo is proof that developers can actually produce a good game based on a movie. Imagine that! Like most platformers, the game involved a lot of jumping. For the most part, the game follows the story of the film, but there are a few occasions when the developers took a few liberties. And in my opinion, this is where the game really shines.
Don't miss the chance to capture the power of the lamp on your very own Super NES system. Get Disney's Aladdin and live the magic and mystery of this classic action-adventure. Disney's Aladdin. Quality entertainment software flying to your Super Nintendo Entertainment System from Capcom.
Now, it's important to remember that there was a point in time in which different video game developers could potentially work on the same property. For example, Tailspin was produced by two different groups for Sega and Nintendo. The Little Mermaid, another property that was produced by two entirely different companies, producing two entirely different games. And the same holds true for Aladdin. In total, there were 5 different versions of Aladdin created for different consoles and handhelds. My personal favorite was the version created for the Sega Genesis. Virgin Interactive was responsible for developing the Genesis version.
Get this! At school I found this magic lamp, and I wished for Disney's Aladdin for my Sega Genesis. It's like the movie! I got to battle sword-slashing thieves, and nasty palace guards, and ride a flying carpet. And I still have 2 more wishes.
Prove it!
The development team came up with a number of really cool concepts that helped make this the superior version of the game, in my humble opinion.
Hey everyone, I'm Robb Alvey, and yes, I was the producer of Aladdin on the Sega Genesis. So Aladdin was a really fun and interesting project in that when we originally were developing Aladdin, we weren't developing a game for Disney. We were actually working on this, what was the name of the game? It was these dinosaurs. I think it was called Dino Blaze. I want to say, I think the meeting with Disney that we initially had was more to pitch Disney on this technology we were doing with this dinosaur game where we were taking traditional drawn cell animation and digitizing it into the game. So we had this really nice fluid feature animation-like movement, you know, in a 16-bit game, and no one was doing this at the time. Disney basically said, we're not interested in your property, but we want you to develop the Sega Genesis version of Aladdin.
I think the Genesis version was also graphically superior to the Super Nintendo. As I understand it, the Virgin Interactive team worked alongside Disney animators to develop the game's signature style. Visually, it felt much more like the animated film.
We had meetings, you know, with Jeffrey Katzenberg at the time, with the directors of the film. But probably the most notable thing and what was most fun for me is I was always kind of a Disney fanboy. And so I had to separate that fanboyism with my professionalism at the time, which was kind of difficult to do when you're sitting in a room with animators. In fact, the animation was being done out here in Orlando when Orlando had a feature animation team at the time. And I remember one of the trips, I came over with one of our animators, and we were both kind of Disney fanboys, but we were at the time having to kind of teach the Disney animators how to animate for a video game. And it was just kind of one of those like really cool moments in my career where I'm like, man, here's something that I've been looking at all my life, and now these Disney animators are like coming to us for advice. It was kind of cool. It was crazy.
Graphically, I'd probably give Genesis the win for successfully capturing the look and feel of the movie. But what about the music? That argument is a bit more subjective. My absolute favorite track came during the bonus level on the Genesis version of Aladdin. During this minigame, you play as the lovable Abu in order to collect some valuable bonus items.
He's got a sword! Hey, you idiots! We've all got swords!
And speaking of weapons, while both games allowed players to throw apples at long-range enemies, it was only the Genesis version that gave Aladdin a scimitar in order to deal with close-range enemies. That's right, in the Genesis version, Aladdin had a freaking sword.
The packaging was really interesting. So, like, for example, this was the American version, and the US version also shared similar box art to the one in Europe. But I gotta be honest, I actually kind of like the one in Japan the most. I mean, it's the you know, for the American audience, it's like, hey, I'm Aladdin, I'm kicking ass, I've got my sword, check me out. But the Japanese one was a little bit more whimsical and a little bit more kind of harkened back to the animated film, and I kind of like it. I mean, I love the Genie's expression on the back of the box too. I mean, he's got, I don't know. I think out of all the versions that were made, the Japanese one's actually my favorite out of all the boxes.
So I've got one more point for you guys to consider. If you were to take the word Genesis and rearrange all the letters, it would spell Genies. So yeah, that's something, right? All right. Over 25 years after the release of the two competing titles, fans still debate which version of the game is superior. While I adore Aladdin on the Genesis, many haters are quick to ridicule the game's often experimental stage layout and somewhat nondescript health bar. Still others, like myself, praise those elements for making the game feel unique. Capcom would only produce 2 more Disney games for the Super Nintendo, Bonkers and The Great Circus Mystery. Virgin Interactive would produce a few Disney titles for the SNES as well, including The Jungle Book, Pinocchio, and the extremely fun and extremely difficult Lion King. Now, we'd like to hear from you. Do you have any favorite Disney video games? And which version of Aladdin do you prefer? Tell us about it in the comments section below.
Okay. Yeah.
And how about our buddy Robb Alvey? If you'd like to hear more from him, make sure to go and subscribe to Theme Park Review on YouTube. And don't stop there. While the subscription train is chugging along, make sure to subscribe to Retro Spectrum so you won't miss a single episode of Details. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the like button, and we'll see you next time.